Welcome to What Sections to Include in a Resume. This is an overview video that will introduce a series to come. You know, a good resume is critical in today's job market. A candidate literally only has about 8 seconds to make an impression on a recruiter, and literally that equates to the first third of a resume. If there are missing elements, there's a good chance your recruiter just might pass you by. In fact, I'm currently redoing a resume for a client right now, and she actually paid someone to do it for her. And what's really sad is it's missing the profile overview and a strong skills section. And no surprise, she's struggling to get a job. This video will speak to the elements of what should be included in a resume. Then a series of resume videos will indeed follow that will help break down each section and have very specific examples. By the end of the series, a person will be able to put together a really good, strong resume without having to pay anyone to do it, unless you want to. Welcome to the Career Rescue Coach YouTube channel. My name is Dawn Casey with over 20 years of human resource experience and leading human resource departments. I now help people with their career challenges, changes, and questions. Thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe and push that bell to let both me know and YouTube know that you're interested in more videos. So let's get started. Can you imagine having a resume that doesn't represent you? Unfortunately, a lot of people do. When I was leading human resource departments and assisting my staff with recruitment, I saw so many terrible resumes. I remember once when I was recruiting for a president position of a small company, I came across one candidate that literally had the perfect background, but his resume was littered with misspellings and grammatical errors. So it happens to the best of them, and you don't want to be one of those folks. Today, I'd like to talk about what sections to include in your resume and why. This first section should be a profile overview. A profile overview can also be called an executive summary, a summary of qualifications, or a professional summary. Whatever a person calls it, think of it as an overview of a person, their years of experience, their background, their top skills, and what they have to offer a company. A job objective statement is outdated. Please don't use this. Employers don't care about your job objective. They care about learning who you are. This section is very important because it's an introduction to who you are. It's the first thing a recruiter will see and be the one thing that will entice a recruiter to read on or not. Make no mistake about it, it is your marketing statement, so it should be pretty darn good. The second section should be the skills and abilities section. This section is sometimes called areas of expertise, highlights, or competencies. The best name, though, really is skills and abilities because it describes what you're going to cover very specifically. This is one of those sections that you'll adjust based upon the job that you're applying for. It's where you put your knowledge, your skills, your abilities, and technical skills. You don't want to forget those. You should also leave blanks at the bottom of this table, and you'll want to fill in some of the skills from the job ad that you're applying for. Now, when filling in some of those skills, only fill in what you actually possess. This section is important because the recruiters search job sites based upon skill sets. Recruiters match skills from job descriptions, and the skills section tells the recruiter what you're capable of and if you meet the minimum requirements. The third section should be the accomplishment section. This section sometimes is called a highlights. This section calls out 1 to 2 accomplishments that you're especially proud of and typically runs about 3 to 4 sentences long for each accomplishment. This section should only contain those accomplishments that directly relate to the job that you're applying for. So this is one of those sections that you'll want to adjust based upon the job that you're actually applying for. So in other words, if you're applying for an accounting job as an example, then you're using accomplishments that directly relate to accounting. This section is very important because it tells the recruiter what you're capable of. It lets the recruiter know that you seek to add value when you're working for an employer, and it tells the employer that you're very goal-oriented. All very good things. This fourth section should be called the experience section. Sometimes it's referred to as work experience, work history, employment history, whatever you call it, it is the job experience. This section provides an overview of the jobs held for the last 10 years. Please don't provide more than 10 years, as it could possibly date you if you have a lot of experience. This section should also contain about 3 to 4 bulleted summary paragraphs for each job performed. It should not be a laundry list of all the tasks performed at each job. No one wants to read that. It is also really nice to provide a summary under each of the position titles about the type of industry that the job was in and whether a person managed any employees in that position. And then you can proceed with a summary of the work history. This section is important because it provides a good overview of the work performed and how the job performed relates to the one that you applied for. It also helps the recruiter understand what was the accomplishments for each of the jobs held. The 5th section should be your education, training, and certification section. This section is often called education. This section should contain all of your education, training, and certifications that you hold. Often employees receive training on the job and they forget to include this very valuable training. Some of the most valuable training is received on the job, where employees are required to take classes or online training. Certifications are also important to include because certifications are often very specific to a field or to a very specific job. This section is really important because employers like to see ongoing education, as they like continual learners. It also demonstrates to an employer that you're very serious about your career, so serious that you want to continue learning and growing. The 6th section should be the computer skills. The section sometimes is listed as computer, software, hardware, technical background. This section should also list the hardware and software that you've had experience on. So think about it this way. The technical skills that are listed in the 2nd section is really about your level and your proficiency. This section is really about just listing what you've worked on so that the recruiter then has an idea of what you're capable of. It's an important section because we live in a very highly technical age, and this section is really something that you continue to add to as you leave every job. You list out all the computer hardware, software. And it's just one of those areas that should always be on a resume, especially today. The 7th section is optional and is the interest section. This section is also referred to as hobbies. It's important that this section stay neutral if you do choose to include it. Avoid stating anything around political affiliations, religious affiliations. You just want to keep it very neutral. And often this section talks about board affiliations and charities, and that is perfectly fine. This section can be added but also adds little value. Often recruiters don't make it to the end of the resumes. Remember how I said they only typically look at the top third? So it's really kind of a give or take whether they ever see this section. But at the very least, it gives the recruiters insight to further learn about who you are as a candidate. And what I find too is that interviews sometimes employers will actually ask about the interests just as a way to get the conversation started. Here are some additional tips. The order of the sections in your resume do indeed matter. Remember, the first third is really what counts, so put the best third up in front. Feel free to add sections on selected experience. Sometimes a person would do this, let's say if they have more than 10 years of experience, and they want to showcase something in their past that directly relates to the job they're applying for. I know I've done that, and it's perfectly acceptable. Feel free to put the education after the skills section. For those who recently graduated, they may want to showcase their newly acquired bachelor's or master's degree. Avoid adding a picture to a resume. I know sometimes this comes up. It really adds to potential discrimination. It doesn't matter, who you are. You don't want to make it easy for the employer to discriminate, and certainly they don't want to discriminate, so avoid the picture. The only exception to this rule is if a person is in the entertainment industry, modeling, or similar type field. And remember, always, always, always check your resume for spelling and grammar. Be very thorough before sending it out to employers. And you always want to start off your statements on your resume with what I call power words, such as managed, directed, coordinated. It always makes a stronger statement. And it's perfectly okay to have a resume that is longer than 1 page. This is a very outdated idea or misconception. Oftentimes, people that have a lot of experience may have a resume that's 3 or 4 pages long, and that is perfectly acceptable. We've covered what the major sections of a resume are and what they should be and why they're important. Also, keep in mind that this is part of a series. This is an overview, and in my series I break down every single section with very specific examples. So be sure to view videos on each of these sections. I hope you found this very helpful. Be sure to check out the Career Rescue Coach Facebook page for really great articles and the group page so that people can ask questions and share their stories. Be sure to comment below, as I'd love to hear from you and any questions that you might have. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and push the bell to get alerted with the latest and greatest videos so that both I and YouTube know that you'd like me to continue producing videos. And thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Dawn Casey as a Career Rescue Coach, and remember, change your job, change your life. Thank you so much for being here.